Hello everyone, welcome to the Lone Pine Habitat Management YouTube channel. My name is Nate Michalski. I'm our founder and lead consultant here at Lone Pine. Behind the camera we have our business operations manager, May. It's the first time you guys are hearing her name. But today we're talking about shooting our bows, specifically in preparation for bow hunting. So we're not just talking about shooting at a target, but doing some reps in shooting at a target that actually prep us for shooting at a deer. Around here, we have a lot of turkeys. We'll probably be sending an arrow or two through them this fall as well. But primarily in focusing and prepping ourselves to shoot at an actual deer. So the first thing we're going to talk about is building a routine in your bow shot. So one big thing that a lot of people struggle with is they kind of think of shooting your bow as one big motion, right? When in reality, there's a lot of different little parts to it that you need to get right and you need to focus on. But at the same time, we don't want to make it seem like it's a super tall task. So we want repeatable things that we can do over and over each time we draw, each time we prep for our release, and each time we release that shot. So the first one, and you can do this without ever even putting an arrow on the bow, is getting from peep lined up to sight into our anchor point. This does two things. One thing, it's repeatable. It gives us a much smoother, cleaner motion. And on top of that, it also minimizes our movement as a hunter, right? We're not pulling back way out high, way wide, way low, whatever it might be, and then moving our arms a bunch to get into our sight picture. So I'll just do one real quick for you guys. So I'll get sideways, up, right? We draw down in, we find peep right into sight, and then we find our anchor point right behind it. So it's all one motion, boom, into our anchor. By then our peep should be lined up, ready to shoot. And again, we can do this over and over and over without an arrow. That way, when we do put an arrow on, we're ready to shoot, boom, we lock right in. All right. Now, another big thing, if you guys have shot a bow before, whether you're brand new or you've been shooting bow for decades, is this idea of target panic. And it's a mental battle, right? When we see a target, right, whether it be a little circle on a target there or a physical animal in front of us, a lot of people fall into what we call target panic. It's where our mind gets so focused on our pin versus our target, right? We see a target and we want to just keep that pin on it dead set. In reality, there's no such thing as a perfect bow shot. That's the first thing that you need to run through your mind over and over and over to kind of start to get past the idea of target panic, right? Even the top notch of whether bow hunters, professional competition shooters, none of them shoot a perfect shot. There's no such thing as a perfect bow shot. In reality, that pin, I'll actually use my release because it might give you guys a better picture, is going to kind of do this, right? It's going to float over the target, right? Kind of slow motions. If we over-focus on our pin versus seeing through it onto the target, what ends up happening is we start doing this, right? We try to jerk that bow into spot. Obviously, that's a little exaggerated, but we try to jerk in front of that target to get it to line up on the center of that target over and over and over. And what happens is then we get to a spot where we try to jump that release, we try to get it off when it's in the center, and we push it, we pull it high, right? There's some extra movement there. In reality, we got to get used to that float, right? We want that, as long as it keeps coming back to center and we get a little bit of float, that's fine. That puts us in a spot where we can really focus on our target. We're at our draw, we got this nice little float, and we can just breathe, and then slowly break into our trigger. So, those are kind of some of the mental and the steps that I wanted to talk about. Next, I'm actually going to show you guys something on our actual target. This is something I do. Instead of getting a big 3D target, a lot of the times those things, their kill zones are kind of set up for competition, so they're not actually on the right spot of a deer. So a lot of people think of, their 10 or 12, depending on the rings. They start thinking of that as their kill shot, when in reality, a lot of those are way up and back on where the lungs would be. So what I like to do is with my target here, just a simple bag target for field points, I actually drew out what we would call our vital V. So if we think of a deer's shoulder, right, this would be our scapula, our shoulder blade. This would be that first leg bone into the joint and then the spine above. On top of that, this is actually quite a bit smaller than an actual deer's vital V. And I like to do that for two reasons. One is if we're sighted in, we're shooting good groups. One, I have a sight or a spot to pick to this what would be that elbow bone, and I can aim up from it into my center mark, which is approximately center of heart, 2-3 inches above, which is where I want to shoot, right? So it kind of minimizes my size of that aim point, which, for mental reps can be a little tough to get, but once you're onto it, right? number two, by having that actually a little smaller than the normal Vital V, it actually shows you that you have a lot more wiggle room than you realize, right? You'll notice a lot of these shots are, you know, pretty much punched out of that center area as a whole. Obviously, there's some out here from targeting in. But primarily, they're punched out in that center area, you know, shooting good groups as we minimize and get down in our group size, right? But in reality, if we miss, you know, 2-3 inches this way, I'm still hitting in this V. If I hit an inch or two this way, I'm still hitting in the V. If I hit an inch high, 2 inches high, 3 inches high, I'm still hitting in that V. And then if it's a little smaller, you can remind yourself, ooh, I have a little more wiggle room on a deer, right? And that's not just to say like, oh, just fling an arrow down and it'll kill a deer. That's not the truth, right? We still want to be precise in where we're hitting, right? We still want to have a good, clean aim point. We want to shoot good, clean groups. But what it does is it shows you we have room for error. And going back to that idea of target panic, if you mentally are okay with knowing, oh, I have a little room for error, ideally, if you've shot your bow a bunch, you're going to hit your spot. But mentally, you're telling yourself, I have room to make a mistake, even if you know physically you're not going to make one, right? But we do make mistakes as bow hunters. But doing this little bit of a mental exercise on a Vital V that's a little smaller than an actual deer will kind of play into our mind of realizing, all right, I have a little room for error, right? It eases our mind up into that shot and will actually make us probably, for most people, shoot a much better shot. Because you're not so focused on, oh my gosh, I'm going to make a mistake. Oh my gosh, it's such a small aim point, right? You're so focused on, oh, I got a little room for error. Let's just make this shot count. Boom, it hits, right? Like I said, this has worked very well for me in terms of target panic. We're going to shoot a few arrows here. My sight might be a little bit off, but hopefully my groups are good. Plane going overhead to the airport. But hopefully my groups are at least good on here so I can show you guys an idea. Even if we're a little bit off, I'll show you guys, again, even if our groups are a little bit off, we're still hitting Vital V. So I'm going to send a few down, and then we'll come back and look at those for you guys. Alright, so as you guys can see, I actually moved my last couple a little bit. I don't know if this one actually hit or not, but it kind of fell back and out. I don't know if it hit a soft spot in the bag. But those first two I pretty much stacked. I was actually shooting a little short of 20 yards through my 20 yards pin. So I shot all of them just a tad high, which is fine, right? Again, this kind of goes to show the reason why I like to mark my Vital V and make a little mini one. Both of those, so this is our center of heart shot here. Those will both be double lung through the deer, clipping off arteries as they go. That deer's probably dead in 20 seconds on your average deer, if not less, right? However, my last two, I believe this upper one was my third one. I decided to shoot a little high and left for you guys. The reason is, right, like I said, this is our ideal aim point, is I'm showing that if I shoot a little high and left on this, oh, I actually got a little room for error, right? That's not a beautiful shot, like I'm just missing the scapula, but I'm still sticking double lung and killing the deer with that shot, right? Same thing with this other one. I shot a little bit left. That one was actually my own doing. But I shot a little bit left, but I'm still clipping the front edge of that heart, getting double lung in regards to that general double V there, right? So every single one of those is a killing shot, even if my group wasn't perfect, right? You know, between these two, that's, you know, a 1-inch group, these first two. Then, oh, I send one a couple inches off. I'm still killing a deer, right? Oh, I send this other one, you know, an inch and a half left of where I was aiming. I still kill a deer, right? So again, it's a good mental exercise of like giving yourself a little room for error in your practice, and eventually you're going to start shooting really good groups, right? Because eventually you realize, oh, I got a little room for error. I don't have to over focus on that pin. I can focus on my center target, breathe, get a good release, get a good shot. All right, so next I want to talk about focusing. I was talking about kind of steps in my routine earlier of how I draw back. Now we're going to kind of talk about those later steps of when we're actually at our draw, leading into our release. And the number one thing I want to focus on is relaxation, right? There's, you know, when you have a deer in front of you, you know, especially if it's one of your target bucks, you know, maybe the biggest buck you've ever shot walks in front of you, there's going to be some nerves there. I don't care who you are. If you don't get those nerves, there's really no reason to hunt, right? You get no excitement from it. So we're all going to have some nerve, you know, a little excitement going through us, a little adrenaline. So I want to get you guys in a spot where we're going through a mental process that actually gets us comfortable to take a shot, right? If we get up and everything's just tight down, stressed as could be, we're probably not going to make a good shot, right? So So once we're at full draw, there's going to be two big things I want us to focus on. And one of them I actually didn't really understand until I came out and shot. And I think it's something that kind of goes overlooked in terms of explanation. This idea of shooting with back tension when we talk about our release. And that is pretty much, we want to shoot with our back muscles, not with our hands, right? A lot of people say, oh, shoot with back tension, shoot with back tension. And people are like, well, my back's tense when I'm drawn, and then I punch my trigger anyways. Well, what we want to do is, yes, we want to be, have good, strong back muscles on our draw. But we also want to pinch that blade, our shoulder blade, instead of punching at our trigger with our finger's here or our thumb's here, depending on your release, right? And then boom, we just pull our shoulder blade back, and as you pull in with your shoulder blade, your finger's naturally going to catch that trigger, especially if your draw length's at the proper length, right? So we want to focus on not attacking that release with our finger or our thumb or dropping our hand if we shoot a hinge release. We want to pinch it in with our back shoulder, not our back shoulder. And number two, another spot of stress that a lot of people get is they start to really grip down on this front grip, or on their grip here, right, with this lead hand. So what ends up happening is, this back arm might be, relaxed or as tense as it needs to be to hold. They might have tension in their back muscles, and that's enough to hold the arrow back, right? On modern compound bows, there's really not a ton of hold once there's that let off. So you don't really need to stress into this hand and push that bow out, throw it out, right? What we want is we kind of want a dead hand. So if we have our grip here, right, we go into our bow and we kind of just let our hand die around it. And then we don't want to be gripping in with our forearm muscles. Because what ends up happening is those then have effects on our bow, on our sight. We're going to get torque and lean on those pins. Also, as you release, wherever that tension is in that bow and that front arm is going to push that arrow that way, right? So if you're over torquing, you're going to push it out to the right. For a right-handed shooter at least, right? So we don't want to be overstressed on this front arm. We want it to be relaxed forearm, right? Dead hand on front. Boom, we release and everything drops and falls as it should, all right? So let's give you guys a little picture of how we're going to do that with one arrow. So I'll try to talk through it and do it correctly. So again, talking about draw, right into our peep and sight, right? Right, I'm not gripping this bow down hard. You can actually see, might even be able to see the bow shake when I over grip like that. Right, but I'm nice and relaxed, keeping my pins vertical. I'm actually going to drop before I shoot because I would totally mess that shot up really bad if I just over grip like that to start. But if I'm here, right, boom, I draw in, peep the sight, front arm's relaxed, I get my finger to trigger, and then I squeeze my shoulder blade, right? You notice my hand kind of drops away, right? You can tell if somebody's kind of getting false follow through, they'll punch and then they'll drop this hand away quick. That's a little exaggerated, but you'll see this difference between the two. First, this is a good way to actually, right now, I'll actually look at this footage for myself. But if you film yourself and you pinch your shoulder blade nice, you should kind of see that hand follow through as that trigger lets go, all one fluid motion. Versus if you're getting false follow through, you'll punch and then pull away, right? That's just making yourself follow through versus letting the strength of your shoulder blade and those back muscles pull that through, catch that release naturally in a flow, right? So I hope you guys learned something from today's video, whether it be, one tip throughout the video or you are building a whole new process from some of the things I talked about. I hope I gave you guys something to think about. I think a lot of guys, I watch a lot of YouTube, podcasts, things like that. A lot of guys get wrapped up in the equipment and kind of, I won't say blaming their equipment for failures, but blaming their equipment for failures or getting over-focused on the equipment itself. And don't really talk about the actual things that go into the physical and mental aspects of archery. So I want you guys to take some of these, especially the mental notes, and get yourself ready to be a really good, successful bow hunter this year. Be prepared, go through those mental reps so that when that big buck walks in front of you, you nail them. You get to go home and put a good old trophy on your wall. So with that, I'll send you guys on your way. If you are interested in bringing us out for a consultation, on your private property, feel free to send us an email at the email listed down below. We're currently still building our website. Hopefully in the next few weeks we'll have that out, so you guys can contact us through that. But for now, send us an email, then we'll send you a form so we can get a little information about your property and your hunting. Then we can set a date, come out there, build a great plan for your private property to make it the best hunting property it can be. But until then, go ahead, check out another video or rewatch this if you need to pick up on those tips again. And then we'll see you hopefully in the next video, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. But it was great talking to you guys today. I love talking about bow hunting. We'll see you in the next video. Have a good one, guys.